Our speaker today teaches Native American religions at Canisius College and is the author of Genesis and the Rise of Civilization. He has been a guest speaker at numerous Unitarian fellowships in Western New York and lives in Buffalo with his wife and their 4 children. Please welcome John Snodgrass.
Before I begin, I should warn you that the first part of this message will be delivered in another language, the language of nerds, in which I am fluent. But if the first part of this is all gibberish, please be patient, and we'll transition into regular English. About a month ago, Buffalo got buried in snow. Everything got shut down, and with the kids out of school for a week, Elizabeth and I saw the opportunity for some much-needed homeschooling. So day after day, we gathered the kids for installments of the Hobbit movies. We consider it an essential part of our parental duty not only to equip our children for the challenges of this world, but also to acquaint them with the culture and customs of Middle-earth. You know what they say? If you don't teach your kids about the Ring of Power, someone else will. Probably Led Zeppelin. Or I guess maybe it'll be Amazon, which used to deliver books, but now has got the power to generate prehistory for the Tolkienian universe. Who controls the present controls the past, as Orwell said. The Hobbit was originally written so that bookish people, armchair homebodies with little athletic inclination and big hairy feet, could envision themselves whisked away on an unexpected journey with a kindly wizard and a rugby team. Good preparation for pudgy boys dreading a camping trip and girls getting ready for Smith College. Elizabeth and I both had relationships with that book that were formative in our youth. Now, watching these films with our teenagers, the Middle-earth literacy that they come in with mostly comes from internet memes, like Boromir saying, one does not simply fill in the blank, like one does not simply pass Gandalf, or one does not simply touch MC Hammer. Plus pop culture references like, and my ex. So for them, it was a delightful game of, oh, that's where this stupid thing comes from. Yes. But the reason people keep joking about this comical moment is that it was a minor flash of humor in an otherwise emotionally wrenching journey. Anyway, now we've once again carried our children up the rocky slopes of both trilogies. Connor did sleep through a chunk of the last movie, sort of like passing out for the last part of a car trip. Are we back already? Yes, you fell asleep. Now help us unpack. What happened? Frodo and Sam broke up. But Legolas and Gimli finally got married. Sorry, I forgot to say spoiler alert. One thing that the kids found to be entirely underwhelming was the dragon. Now here is where the strength of movie making fails. Because watching a CGI dragon awaken in a treasure vault and rain fire on Lake Town, no matter how great the special effects, cannot compare with sitting in bed by lamplight, reading and envisioning yourself facing this beast. And there's only so much that we can worry about Bilbo Baggins in the second film when we've already been told that it's a Hobbit trilogy. Plus, we don't fear dragons like we used to. Our dragon anxiety is at an all-time low. Giant beasts are nowhere near as frightening as microscopic virus particles and Supreme Court justices, whose lifetime appointments make them unusually susceptible to dragon sickness. Tolkien did not invent that dragon. He inherited it from Beowulf, an Anglo-Saxon legend that he had translated into modern English as a professor. In that story, an ancient dragon has been slumbering on a big pile of treasure, and when a thief steals a single cup, the monster being an uptight Anglo-Saxon sort of dragon, takes to the air in a rage, burning villages with its breath. King Beowulf comes out of retirement as an adventurer to fight this beast that mortally wounds him before he kills it with a dagger. The Beowulf dragon seems to have been borrowed from an old Norse legend of a greedy dwarf who killed his father and stole his treasure, and then hid himself away in a cave with this wealth until nesting on this pile of gold gradually turns him into a poisonous lizard. Then the theft of a piece of treasure awakens him, inciting a rampage, and he'll be killed by a hero with an enchanted sword. These stories have a fascinating common denominator. The dragon is a symbol of greed and laziness. Dragons since then have become symbols of various types of danger and harm. Old maps of the world used to use the caption, "Here be dragons," to mean uncharted territories. Ironically, "Here be dragons" turned out to be the Americas. And in some ways, it would make more sense, instead of naming the continents after some cartographer, to just keep calling it "Here be dragons." Welcome to Here Be Dragons, in gold we trust. The word dragon comes from the Greek language, possibly from Draco, an Athenian legislator who replaced the old informal oral laws with a written code. Now, this was a tough code. This was one of the first written law codes in the world. And it ordered the death sentence for everything from cabbage theft to homicide. And when they asked him why his laws were so rigid and cruel, he answered that small crimes deserved death, and for the bigger crimes, he couldn't come up with anything worse. So actually, he said the cabbage thieves were getting their just desserts, and it was the murderers who were getting off easy. It is from Draco that we get the English word draconian, meaning excessively cruel punishments. Are we familiar? Have we heard this word before, draconian? Good. Use this word. It is on the endangered words list. And I'll tell you, if we don't use words like draconian, then the English language is going to become full of words like Rizzler. And it'll be our fault. So please, help an ancient word. Keep it alive. Give it breath. Okay. Anyway, so this is how the kind of monster whose cup gets stolen so he burns down a whole village apparently is named after Draco, this Athenian lawmaker. Some of the most famous snakes in religion are found in Greek mythology, where Heracles fights the many-headed Hydra, and Apollo kills the mighty Python, and Perseus decapitates the serpent-haired Gorgon Medusa, whose looks can turn a man into stone. You could almost say behind every great man, there is a decapitated snake. Now, the Greeks loved presenting themselves as civilized saviors, rescuing the world from dangerous serpents, but we've got to be careful of taking Greek myth too literally, since we know from archaeology that classical Greece was built on the bones and ruins of peaceful utopias run by priestesses. And a lot of this Greek mythology comes from barbarians rampaging through convents and then telling everyone that the nuns were scary monsters. Like Heracles bullies the midwives. Just doesn't sound as cool as Heracles battles the Hydra. The association of the serpent with the shamaness is clear from Greek history. The enlightened Apollo slew the giant Python, we're told, but the fumes of this buried monster's decay continued rising, giving visions to a priestess, Pythia. And for almost 2,000 years, this oracle in the cave at Delphi uttered predictions of the future. It turns out she could predict everything except the CO2 detector. But then if she had, they would have figured out that there was a natural gas leak in the cave, and the visions would have stopped. But no matter how intellectually and philosophically self-congratulatory the ancient Greeks became, and remember, these were the people who invented pretentiousness, Greek writers from Plato to Diogenes to Herodotus attested that the words of this psychedelic shamaness always proved to be accurate. The all-knowing Python priestess is one of the few surviving textual examples of the positive association of the divinely inspired woman with a serpent companion. From prehistoric symbolism, we can see that this partnership was central in ancient mythology long before the woman and the snake became the primordial progenitors of all blame in the biblical book of Genesis. That's why I try to stick with the script, is that, when I'm like, I can clarify this by saying, and it's like, what are the words that are come to mind? It's like, oh yeah, the primordial progenitors of blame, that's really precise. Okay, anyway. From prehistoric symbols and vestigial traces in mythology, we can reconstruct elements of the belief from the time before classical Greek myth and history. In one ancient story, creation begins with a goddess, Eurynome, the wide wandering, who dances in a swamp of dark chaos, and her graceful movements massage the elements apart into sea, land, and sky. Then, taking hold of the north wind, she forms a companion, the serpent Ophion. Assuming the form of a dove, she lays a great egg, and the snake coils around this to fertilize it until it bursts open, and out come the sun, the moon, the stars, the plants, the animals, the components of the habitable world. Then things go badly. The snake begins congratulating himself and telling everyone that he is the creator. So the goddess kicks his teeth out and banishes him to the underworld. Now in this story, the male snake is a necessary partner and protector, but once he starts acting patriarchal, the trouble starts, and the goddess has to show him who's boss. In ancient Mayan mythology, the bird and serpent are combined into a single figure. The primeval chaos cannot be separated into sea, land, and sky without a feathered serpent, a special being who can travel all realms, possessing the scales of a sea snake and the feathers of a quetzal bird. As in other mythologies, the serpent aspect symbolizes immortality, and the green feathers symbolize abundant forest growth. In addition, this singular figure encompasses a spectrum of gender, being simultaneously the masculine snake and the feminine bird. This feathered serpent swam in the primeval muck where she encountered the storm god, Huracan, and together they agreed that the water, land, and sky must be separated so that humans could be formed and begin farming. Ancient Chinese mythology contains dragons, both good and bad. Flying serpents are associated with dangerous lightning and much-needed rainfall. In Chinese flood narratives, it is a dragon called Yinglong who saves the world by carving canals with its tail, allowing the floodwaters to drain away. The dragon is still celebrated as part of Chinese New Year parades, in which dancers guide massive puppet dragons that slither in the air through the streets, purifying the houses and the businesses they pass. In the Chinese zodiac, 2024 is the year of the dragon. The dragon is an earth sign associated with the feminine side of the yin-yang, lucky for children born this year, and a good year for the rest of us to rise from a slump. The snake has always been a fascinating symbol. For our prehistoric ancestor, the serpent emerging, shiny and new from its wrinkled old skin, must have looked like a magical act of rebirth and immortality. Then, of course, there was a whole issue of poison and strangulation and being swallowed whole by some giant anaconda. As a kid, I was taught to sing while being eaten by a boa constrictor. Oh, gee, it's up to my knee, and oh, heck, it's up to my neck. You know, it's a Shel Silverstein poem. But I don't really think that that captures the horror of it. Although it's not the worst way to go. A guy at a playground park bench recently told me the worst thing in the world was to be eaten by an animal. But I disagree. I told him the worst thing in the world is to leave your family with $6,000 in burial expenses. At least the animal will take care of that for you. Part of humanity's spiritual journey in all parts of the world has been coming to terms with terror, including the terror of the serpent. Somehow integrating this into religion, not just labeling it evil or an eternal enemy. And here I'm not referring to that theory of the ancient space lizards mating with primates to create the first humans. I mean no disrespect to the space lizard people out there. I'm not asking for a show of hands. It's okay. We can all get along here. I'm not one of you. It's okay. When we label the other or the unexplained as evil, we limit our own ability to learn from differences. Rather than empowerment, it is a hindrance. I think we have something to learn from these ancient symbols of cooperation with these scary reptiles. Unless you run into a snake who says, "Don't tread on me." That guy needs therapy. Thank you.